What is up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the next episode of the Three Peaks Fitness Podcast. I'm Coach Mark.
I'm Coach Lynette.
Today we've got a good one for you.
Yes.
Very relevant to the season because this past week it was cold.
Yes.
It was really cold.
Freezing.
Yes. I saw a lot of jackets and boots and hats and trying to bundle up and stay warm.
Yeah. And the car is getting frost on it.
The car, you got to start leaving 5 minutes early so you can defrost the windshield.
Chipping the ice off the windshield.
Yeah. But cold, as it turns out, may not be as bad for us as we think.
It's annoying, but there are some seriously good health benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go into this, I want to let everybody know that we're not a couple of crazy people that just enjoy being cold.
Oh, no.
In fact, the two of us prefer tropical weather.
Yeah. I'll take 100 degrees over 20 degrees any day of the week.
So, just want to put that out there so that you don't disregard what we're saying. Like, oh, well, they just like it cold. Like, no. In fact, this was very difficult for me to accept.
Yeah.
I went through the 5 stages of grief while studying this, realizing, okay, this is something I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely was fascinating going through the research and stuff and seeing just how significantly beneficial cold exposure is. So Lynette, can you explain, give the rundown, what is cold exposure therapy, right? What is that?
Well, I'm going to call it deliberate cold exposure because when you are if you're stuck out in the cold against your will, the benefits are not near the same. So deliberate cold exposure is when you deliberately expose yourself to a cold environment for a certain amount of time in order to stress your body on purpose. And there's a lot of things on a chemical and on a cellular level that happen to your body physically and mentally when you expose yourself to cold for short periods of time, right? So this isn't, like you're jumping in the ocean for an hour or something. That would be too much.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
So it looks like an ice bath or a cold shower, things like that, or swimming in an unheated pool. Anything that's cold, or even just stepping outside.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you could be taking your dog out, when it's 30 degrees outside, and not
just your T-shirt. Just make sure your dog isn't one of those dogs that wants to be out there for 25 minutes. That might be a bit much.
No huskies.
Yeah. So there's a ton of benefits. Before you guys are like, why is being cold beneficial? So the benefits, the physical benefits are you're going to reduce your inflammation. There's a ton of research on this. You've probably seen this on TV where, professional athletes will just take an ice bath after practice. So that's pretty common. But another thing that happens is when you expose yourself to cold on a routine basis, you're going to change your white fat to your brown fat. And that is significant. So white fat is just the fluffy stuff that just kind of stores energy. And that's all it does.
It's lame.
It stores energy.
Yeah.
And we need some of it. We do need some white fat. But brown fat is kind of awesome, right? So it's stored around here on the collarbone and in your upper back and around your liver and your heart. And it's very active. And we call it brown fat because it's packed with mitochondria. And that mitochondria is very active, and it's acting like a furnace in your body. It helps keep you warm. So as you repeatedly expose yourself every week, a few minutes per time, you're going to create more brown fat in your body, and that's good to have. It's it's not going to people who are like, I want to lose weight. No. It's good. Brown fat will help you actually burn more calories if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah.
So it's very active. Brown fat is great. So cold exposure is going to really amp that up. So you're going to increase your fat loss if you're interested in that, increase your metabolism, really increase it a lot.
Insulin management.
Yes, it's going to
people with type 2 diabetes.
Yes,
very helpful.
Yeah, it's going to really help with that. So highly recommend that. So that's just some of the physical benefits. That's the major ones. There's more.
Yeah.
But those are the major ones. Then my favorite is the mental benefits. This is huge.
Yeah.
Okay, this is huge. When I first read about this, I first read about it about a year ago. And I was like, this is nuts. I'm not doing this. But a couple months ago, I said, all right, I'm going to revisit this idea of taking a cold shower for mental health. So I've started doing it. And what you do is you basically, well, let's go into the benefits first. So the mental benefits is it develops resilience. The problem with us in this modern society is we're too comfortable too often, and we are not mentally resilient. And so when a challenge comes up, whether it be, you know, failing a test or whatever it is that's, you know, maybe we don't like our boss or anything that stresses us out, we're responding to it, we're reacting to it. Anxiety levels and everybody is high because we're all physically comfortable most of the time. So we haven't learned how to be calm when our adrenaline is pumping.
Right.
And that is something you need to, your body and your mind is connected. And so if you can physically put yourself in a stressful situation, i.e. a cold shower, and train yourself to be calm, even for just a few seconds, you're going to develop that mental resilience. Yeah. And it's called, we call it top-down control, right?
Top-down control, yeah. Basically, it is teaching your prefrontal cortex to not be subject to your amygdala or your impulsive parts of your brain, which can actually be extremely helpful, especially if you're someone who is impulsive with things like their eating, maybe impulsive with your, you know, you drink too much, you know, your nightcaps, whatever impulses you have. Typically those impulses arise during times of usually like chronic stress, like, oh, there's a lot going on. I need something to make me feel better. Right?
Yeah.
So if you can improve your top-down control and teach yourself to, like, hey, I don't need to snack on all of these pretzels even though I'm stressed out, right? Yeah. Doing these little micro exposures, right? Putting your body in a state of stress by being in an uncomfortable, cold environment, but remaining, you know, okay, I'm calm, I'm not going to die, right? That's like a micro version of that macro, you know, chronic stress impulsiveness behavior that so many of us experience.
It is important. You can read about, I mean, there's a lot of people that go into therapy and, you know, read about learning to, you know, name their anxiety and talk themselves through it. And those are all helpful things. But until you physically practice being uncomfortable, being under stress, and practice calming yourself down, it's kind of like, it's like reading about learning how to ride a bike. You're not going to really learn how to ride a bike until you get on there and do it.
And this is actually more important than it's ever been because we've talked about the post-pandemic malaise. So everyone is, whether you realize it or not, your window of tolerance has gotten a lot smaller after the pandemic. You are, as a society, we're not capable of dealing with stress and stressors the same way we were 3 years ago. Because we're all just burnt out. The world's completely different. Our whole like schema of how things are supposed to be has just completely, you know, been turned upside down. And all of those are stressors. And so if we were already stressed out, now everything we've been through has made us even more stressed out, thereby shrinking that window of tolerance, thereby making it more likely for you to act impulsively in dealing with your stress. So working on this top-down control is more important than ever.
I can't recommend it enough. So if you're struggling with impulsive eating, this cold shower practice can really help you practice that, right? Learn to deal with your anxiety and stay calm.
And even on another level, just like on a more basic level, the resilience of like, hey, like I can do uncomfortable things. Right? Like, okay, my alarm goes off. I'm supposed to work out. I don't really feel like it, but I'm going to go anyway. Right? Like I have the mental resilience to do hard things.
It's going to translate like standing in line, a long line, or getting cut off in traffic. Or your kid talks back to you. You're a little slower to react because, you know, you're training that prefrontal cortex to, you know.
Take control.
Not as impulsive.
Right.
So, and it happens over time. Give yourself time. And so we're going to tell you how to do this. How to do this. So people are going to say, well, how cold does the water need to be? Or the air, whatever. How cold does it need to be?
So the uncomfortable but safe. There's no specific temperature, and everyone's going to start at a different point. Like if you're someone who lives in Minnesota, you're probably going to be able to start a lot colder than someone who lives in Florida.
True.
Right? So it's just relative. Yeah. So the easiest cold exposure is going to be in the shower. We all take showers, so that's usually the best place to start. So you'll want to start at a temperature that, again, is uncomfortable. Like, you shouldn't be shivering. You shouldn't have a panic attack and pass out from hyperventilating because it's so cold, right? You should be uncomfortable. Yeah. Right? And as that temperature, you get acclimated to it, you get adjusted to it, you can get a little bit colder. Yeah. And a little bit colder. A little bit colder. Yeah. It's really important, though, that you take baby steps. Yeah. That you don't just go all in on,
Don't fill your tub with ice and water and hop in.
If you're not used to it, yeah.
Yeah, you might have a heart attack.
You could, if you get too cold.
Be careful. Mm-hmm. Yep. Be careful.
But so and then so a really good protocol for this, the recommendation, this is based on research, is 11 minutes per week.
Yeah, per week.
With immersion. Okay, so if you're doing it in the shower, or if you have access to a cold plunge or something like that, 11 minutes a week they recommend. I want to say it was like 1 to 5 minutes in 2 to 4 sessions or something.
I was going to say, you're not doing 11 minutes in one hit.
Yeah, okay. Break it up, do a minute here, a couple minutes the next day when you're showering and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you do not have access to a cold plunge, or you don't feel like doing it in the shower, you can do it outside as long as the weather is cold enough for you to be uncomfortable. But if it is air exposure as opposed to water exposure and immersion, then you're going to need to multiply that by 4. So you're really going 44 minutes of exposure in the air. The reason being, water basically saps away the heat from your body.
It's much faster than air
does. Yeah.
So the water's quicker. The water's very quicker, but air works.
Yeah. And so when you guys embark on this journey of cold exposure, do you want to explain the walls? There's going to be some mental hurdles that you run into.
So, you're going to notice, even listening to this podcast, you're going to probably be resisting the whole idea of cold. So we would call that a wall when you have resistance or a desire not to do it. Mm-hmm. And so when you're doing a cold exposure practice, count the number of walls that you get over or get through in order to do the practice. So your first one would be deciding to do it. That's your first wall. And so each time you do a cold exposure bout, count the number of walls that you climb through in order to get through it. And what you'll notice is the number of walls will start to go down as you get better at the cold exposure. So at first you're going to be a lot of walls, a lot of brick walls.
Yeah, really high brick walls.
But track them down. Like, okay, the first one is deciding to turn the water from steaming hot to lukewarm. That's, like deciding to do that might be a big deal to some people because they just really need that hot water. They think that they need the super hot shower. So, okay, I got through that wall. And then do that for a few seconds. Like, can I go colder? Or maybe that's all I can handle. All right. Then go back to hot. And just keep track of how many walls you're able to climb through. So, there is a step to doing this. If you've never done any kind of cold exposure, it's really important to do it right because you're not going to reap the mental benefits if you spend the whole time panicking or if you spend the whole time jumping around and just kind of tensing up. You're not going to get that mental resilience. So it's really, you might get the physical benefits. So I guess if you want to start there, that's fine. But if you're really looking for that mental resilience, this is what you need to do. So you get in your shower, you turn it to the uncomfortably cold, and you have a goal of making it at least 10 seconds. If that's too much, then go for like 2 or 3 seconds. Figure out where you're at. Everyone's at a different place. But the general goal for a beginner is to try and do 10 seconds of uncomfortably cold. Then the step 2 is stay calm. So my first reaction whenever I feel cold is I want to brace my shoulders up. I want to tense. I want to tense against the cold. I absolutely like whenever we do that mud race in the fall. And that's the cold plunge coming up. It is a huge. I was like, oh, I hate this so much. So I don't get any mental benefits from that cold bath. I'm embracing. Next time, I'm gonna be so zen. So you need to stay calm under this water. So take a deep breath. Don't allow yourself to panic. And then step 3 is pay attention to your physical and mental state. Like, what am I thinking? Is this a threat? Am I gonna die? Like, really give yourself a reality check. This is not a real threat. You are not going to die.
Be all right.
These are things that you're practicing, and your brain is going to develop resilience as you stay calm, as you keep that breathing slow. Don't let yourself, panic, and count the number of walls you're able to get through.
Yeah.
And then, when you've reached your tolerance level, turn it back to warm. And success. It's very important that every time you do a cold exposure that you are successful in staying calm. So don't do more cold than you're able to.
Yeah.
Gradually build up so that you are successful every time that you do a cold exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is you want it to be, if it's so cold that you can't act normally, like you can't be calm, it's too cold.
Yeah,
you need to go a little bit warmer until you're comfortable. You find a temperature where you're able to remain calm. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but you're not like intense and hyperventilating. Yeah, you can talk yourself through it.
Yeah, and if you're doing an air version of this, if you're going outside, then of course you're going to bundle up more and just take layers off as you go.
Yeah.
So you do the air version of it, but same principle though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get through these and you get all those fancy benefits we were talking about. One thing we forgot to mention was dopamine.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
It's
amazing.
A long time.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you expose yourself to the cold, and then you are no longer exposed to the cold, and you move into a warm environment.
Yeah.
The dopamine that is released in your body is you'll feel it. You'll feel good.
Yes.
For a while. I don't know. I don't remember exactly.
A lot of people use the word alive. I feel so alive.
Yeah.
After I've done a colder exposure, and it just lasts for a while. Yeah. And you're more focused. And you're more productive, and you're just kind of happier, right?
It's funny. We have we do like these walk runs for the warm up at our gym here in Columbia, and now that it's cold, like
it's not a warm up. Like, now it's a cold exposure experience.
It's like, all right, guys, we got 5 minutes, walk around, and like on the way out, everyone's like, ugh, like I don't want to do this. This sucks. But as soon as they come back in, from the cold,
their eyes are brighter.
The energy is noticeably different.
It's true. It's true, definitely. Yeah, there's a little more energy. They come in, they're ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go.
So true.
Cool.
They complain the whole time, but they are ready to go. It works.
It does. It's real. This is science. So
yeah, definitely.
I think we pretty much hit everything. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
I mean, if you want to take a deep dive into this, and you may not believe us, like, oh, you guys are nuts, right? Go ahead and Google Huberman Labs. He does 2 or 3 podcasts on this. He's
love Huberman.
And Peter Attia does some cold exposure stuff, and it's on. This is real science. This is not voodoo.
There's no shortage of research on this.
A ton
Plenty
of research.
Studies have been done.
And we didn't have time for this, but there are longevity studies on this. So cold exposure is part of living longer and living better. So we don't have time to get into that, but if you want to increase your quality of life and your length of life, cold exposure is definitely part of that.
Yeah, and actually, now that we're talking about this reminds me of the podcast we did on allostatic load.
Yeah.
And the importance of strategically placing yourself in uncomfortable positions, right? But not overextending. Yeah. So this feeds into that. So it makes sense that it would also contribute to longevity if you're doing it the right way. If you're taking time to expose yourself to the cold, not freezing, not going to give not going to kill yourself, but making yourself uncomfortable. Yeah. Right? Does wonders for the body. The same way that when you're exercising and you you kind of push yourself to a point of discomfort. You know, not puking.
Yeah.
There is a point where you can go too far,
right,
and it's counterproductive.
More exercise is good to a point.
To a point, yeah.
To a point.
But putting your body in these uncomfortable positions is really, it's fantastic in terms of mental, physical benefits, obviously, but mental benefits, longevity. So much so that there are plenty of scientists who are perfectly comfortable saying yes to this, and we still don't even know all of the details on it.
No, we don't.
But it's pretty evident.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty evident that that you need to do this if you want to extend your life. If you want to be around for your kids and your grandkids till you're 100, 120 years old. Like, you need to be doing these types of activities where you're extending yourself, not overextending, but you're extending yourself, allowing yourself to recover, and then extending yourself again. So
being uncomfortable is a really important skill.
Yep.
Learning to be uncomfortable and stay calm in that place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So cool.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully this was helpful. We will talk to you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.